Lot 448 is our carved swan, although Miss Hepburn called it her goose. And this is a piece she actually bought for her and Spencer Tracy while they were living in George Cukor's guest cottage on his property in Beverly Hills. It hung in that home, and then after Spencer Tracy passed away and she spent more time in her New York townhouse in Turtle Bay, the goose/swan came with her and resided with her, and is always a big part of her life. Collectors will love a piece like this because it's one of the symbolic pieces of the Tracy-Hepburn relationship. Miss Hepburn loved art all her life. When she traveled, she toured museums. She bought some fabulous pieces of artwork, generally pieces that spoke to her, street scenes, seascapes. But what's not well known about Miss Hepburn was that she was also an accomplished artist herself. And that is an extremely personal side of her. So personal that the year after her autobiography, Me, made the New York Times bestseller list, she was approached to do a book on her art. She went so far to have her niece and nephew photograph her collection and interview her about it. But she decided that it was so personal in nature that she could not go through with the book. And I think that shows something about Miss Hepburn's inner spirit. Here is a woman who was in the business of creating all her life as an actress. But that was a business, even though it was a craft and an art. Whereas her painting and sculpting was simply a part of her. It was never for commerce. It was simply to explore a different part of her soul. Lot 464 should be immediately noticeable for many people. This is an Al Hirschfeld, done of Spencer and Kate. Al Hirschfeld, not only one of our greatest caricaturists, but Tracy and Hepburn, one of his favorite subjects. And throughout this sale, we have a number of pieces by him. And he was a good friend of Miss Hepburn's. And it's obvious when you're looking at this that he did this with an enormous amount of affection for both of them. For anyone who's seen a Tracy Hepburn movie, this piece sums up their sort of continual tongue-in-cheek battle of the sexes relationship between them, which is obviously has the underpinnings of a lot of playfulness and a huge amount of affection. Lot 279 is one of our Toulouse-Lautrec prints that was collected by Miss Hepburn, May Belfort. And again, this is very much like the Hirschfeld. You have collectability on two different levels. First, you have Toulouse-Lautrec, one of the greatest artists ever. Secondarily, you have something that was from Miss Hepburn's collection. My suspicion is that she probably bought it when she was in Paris, as she did often in her travels. She purchased pieces and brought them back. And I think it probably appealed to Miss Hepburn because you see a woman who looks very independent and has a lot of spirit. And I think that relates back to Miss Hepburn directly. We have a number of iconic images of Katharine Hepburn in the sale, but lot 567 is one of my favorite images of her. This is a painting that was done in the early 70s by an artist named Mafani Pavlik. And what happened was, Miss Hepburn was doing an interview with Dick Cavett, and Pavlik saw her and decided to do a painting based on that tape, and then sent it to her. And this is the painting, and this hung in Miss Hepburn's home. This is one of her favorite representations of herself, and I think it captures her perfectly. Focused, talking, animated, lively, and brings out still the fabulous beauty that she still had at that time. What was captured here in this painting is that liveliness in her, that always that inner thinking, that inner concentration, which I think just comes out in her as a glow. Lot 387 is one of the great representational pieces of Miss Hepburn's art. She loved to paint beach scenes, and she did it quite often, whether it was in Stratford, Connecticut, when she was performing Shakespeare, or in Australia on the beach of Sydney, or here, which is the Isle of Man, when she was visiting Guess Who's Coming to Dinner playwright Willie Rose. The reason why it particularly speaks to me is in many of her beach scenes, they're water, they're beach, there could be lighthouses quite often. She was quite fond of lighthouses, but this one's a self-portrait, which you don't often see. And the key to that is two things. One, she loved to put red. Red and white were her favorite colors. And you see her under the umbrella in a red bathing suit. The second clue, which is the more obvious clue, is that on the bag there is a giant K. K for Katharine. So it's a wonderful moment in her life and a wonderful painting and a great representation of her. Lot 460, the bronze bust of Spencer Tracy, is probably one of the most endearing objects in the sale. One major reason is that Miss Hepburn called it her most prized possession. Secondarily, for someone who didn't have any lessons, it's an amazing recreation, an amazing representation of Spencer Tracy. It looks just like him. And it was obviously made with an enormous amount of love and affection. She did this in the 1960s. There was a period of time where she semi-retired. She lived in LA with Tracy, and she took care of him. And that's really the time where she took her art the most seriously, where she painted still lifes of flowers and fruit, and she sculpted. And there are two major sculptures in the sale. One we call Angel on a Wave, which she did, which is a bronze angel baby with wings on a glass slide. And the other is this bust of Spencer. This bust sits on Spencer Tracy's desk in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And after Spencer Tracy passed away, it traveled with Miss Hepburn wherever she went, on the road or at her bedside in Fenwick. This particular bust, because of the relationship between Tracy and Hepburn, because of Miss Hepburn's open affection for this particular piece, and because of its intrinsic artistic value, is one of the top 5 pieces in the sale in interest.
Coming up, Katharine Hepburn turns heads and raises eyebrows, creating a style that's all her own.
She wore pants when women weren't considered to wear pants. She felt comfortable wearing khakis and a shirt at a time where women would change their outfits every day.